In this episode of Linux Newslog, a Linux Botnet, Apple open sources Grand Central Dispatch, and Microsoft founds a new open source foundation. QuickSurf Internet Media presents Linux Newslog, separating the Linux and open source signal from the noise. Hey everybody, I'm your host Adrian, coming to you almost live from Studio BR2 here at QuickSurf Internet Media in Phoenix, Arizona. Linux Newslog is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Do feel free to check them out over at techpodcasts.com. Let's go ahead and get into the stories for episode number 183. All right, the first story that we have is from the Register, and it's entitled "The Linux Web Server Botnet Pushes Malware." Basically, a security researcher, Dennis Signeguboko, I completely slaughter names, so I apologize if that's not how your name is pronounced. He's discovered a cluster of infected Linux servers that have been corralled into a special ops botnet of sorts and used to distribute malware to unwitting people surfing the internet. The infected machines consist of a dedicated or virtual dedicated server running Linux and an Apache web server that serves up benign content. It's a legitimate website, but in addition to that, it's been hacked to run a second web server known as NGINX, which serves up the malware. So far, there's only about 100 nodes, and it's not really known whether what the purpose of it is for. So it'll be kind of interesting to see as things unfold with this. The second story that we have for this segment is entitled "Apple Open Sources Leopard's Grand Central Dispatch." And this is from Apple Insider. Basically, Apple's decided to open source the code behind Grand Central Dispatch under the Apache 2.0 license. And Grand Central Dispatch is a key new feature of the newly released OS X version 10.6. And what it does is it makes it easier to write code that takes advantage of multiple processors, multiple processing cores, that sort of thing. And basically, Grand Central Dispatch is joining a bunch of other Apple open sourced projects such as WebKit and Cups. Let's go ahead and talk about our sponsor for this episode. Anyone expecting a long wait for your technical expertise is in for a big surprise. Introducing the new GoToAssist Express, brought to you by Citrix. You can provide immediate support by easily viewing and controlling your customers' computers online. Handle more requests in less time. Assist up to 8 customers at once. Support both Mac and PC users. Try GoToAssist Express free for 30 days. For this special offer, you must visit gotoassist.com/techpodcast. That's gotoassist.com/techpodcast for a free trial. All right, the first story that we have for this second block of stories is entitled "Microsoft Founds and Funds a New Open Source Foundation." I found this over at ZDNet in the All About Microsoft blog authored by Mary Jo Foley. And the foundation is called the Codeplex Foundation, and it's a new nonprofit open source foundation being founded and funded by Microsoft. The foundation is to be dedicated to increasing the participation of commercial source vendors in the open source world. The foundation will be license and project agnostic and wants to be complementary to other open source foundations and not a rival to them. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop with that. By all means, check that out. One other story that I discovered over at news.com, this involves the Facebook acquiring FriendFeed news that happened a couple weeks ago. Essentially, what this is Facebook is open sourcing the real-time FriendFeed facet. Basically, the real-time technology that FriendFeed was using is called Tornado, and it's the company's real-time non-blocking framework, and it's written in Python. And Facebook has decided that they're going to go ahead and open source that. And the reason for them doing this mainly is because they want to see others implement real-time technologies, and they said, you know what, this is a really great framework for doing that. Let's go ahead and open source it, and hopefully, other people will start to use it. So kind of nice. In our how-to section, I ran across a story entitled How to Set Up Ubuntu Linux on a Mac. It's easy and free. This comes from the unofficial Apple weblog. You all know I'm an Ubuntu fan, so I found this particularly interesting. Basically, there's a list of 10 steps that you have to take. This isn't going to... Got something in my eye here. This isn't going to cost anything. And I'm not going to go through a lot of detail. The article has screenshots and pretty significant amount of detail. But if you're a Mac user and you want to get Linux on your Mac, the 10 steps, I'll go ahead and run through the steps at a high level. Download and install VirtualBox is the first step. Number 2, download the Ubuntu ISO. Number 3, launch VirtualBox. Number 4, create a new virtual machine. Number 5, select the base memory for the virtual machine. Number 6, create a new hard disk. Number 7 is preparing to load Linux. Number 8 is loading Linux. Number 9 is update Ubuntu. And number 10 is play. Now you can probably, depending on the speed of your internet connection, once you actually have the software, because the Ubuntu ISO is not tiny, but once you have the software downloaded and in place, you can probably do this in less than an hour or so. I've not actually tried these steps. I may actually do a screenshot of them just to see how difficult or easy it is. But the article that the author of this particular story has up is pretty comprehensive, so you should be able to just follow his directions and get Linux on your Mac. Well, that about does it for this episode of Linux Newslog. As always, everything I've talked about is linked up in the show notes over at linux.quicksurf.com. If you want to email me, shoot me an email, linux@quicksurf.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Adrian_bacon. And every other way you can get a hold of me is also linked up in the show notes. There's a bevy of places on the internet that you can get a hold of me, friend, and or follow me. And so with that being said, thank you for watching and listening to Linux Newslog, and I will see you all next week.